Ciao, Bellas, and welcome to my new podcast, Senior Bitches. It's a global smash hit. It's an international phenomenon already after 2 episodes. Who knew? And get ready for it. We are going to talk about women over 55. Yeah. Yep. We're talking about amazing women who are super duper thriving. We're living authentically and empowered. Because let's face it, we've had a lifetime of people telling us what to think and what to do. And I'm kind of over it. We're like put out to pasture. We're past our prime, like something that goes bad in your fridge. I personally don't love that analogy. So I'm fascinated by our number, and I'm kind of fascinated by how I react to my number because I'm 60. I'm 60.
I just turned 61.
Well, you don't look it, bitch. And I've had a lot of problems with that number, but now what I'm learning to do is to write my own rule book. And it feels so liberating. We're told so many things externally about how we look, how we're supposed to act, and I'm calling total bullshit. So in Senior Bitches, I'm determined to shed a light on all these women who are just shattering what it looks like to age. Now, today I'm calling this episode Happy, and I'll tell you why. Because my guest makes me so happy. I've had the chance to work with her over the years. And she's just fabulous. And she was actually a guest on my cooking show, What's for Dinner, and another international phenomenal hit. And I did it with my beautiful Ken Kostick. And she was coming on to be a guest on our show. And she was a huge star. And we were not. So we really, polished our game. We had to be on top of our professionalism. And we actually had a live audience, which was kind of a problem because sometimes we had stalkers in the audience who would yell out inappropriate things. We also did live to tape, and we never cut on anything. We almost cut once when I cut off the top of my finger and bled all over a red pepper. And all they did was told me to lie down at the side of the kitchen until they got the cameras up again. So when this person came on, we wanted to be so professional. So the cheesy music is going, and we're waiting for her to enter our fake kitchen through our fake back door. Music stops. I turn around and I see the door shaking, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a disaster. And then I hear a snap, the door opens, and in she walks with a doorknob and a cantaloupe, which was a housewarming present for our fake kitchen. She probably doesn't remember this, but I thought, this is the coolest woman ever. A doorknob and just an obscure melon that she brings to somebody's fake cooking show. So I have been in total respect for her ever since. She is an international, successful, best-selling musician. She's now a best-selling author. She's an advocate for total cool causes. Now she's a TV star in Canada and the US. No, you're multi-hyphenate and totally hot and wonderful. And I bow down and welcome the wonderful Jann Arden to Senior Bitches.
Wow. And
welcome.
That's all the time we have, Mary Jo.
Yeah, I got to go. Sorry.
It's very kind of you. And yes, I do remember the doorknob coming off of the show. And shout out to Ken Kostick, who was such a smart, charismatic man. And I remember when he became unwell, and it seems like yesterday, and it seems like 1,000 years ago, Mary Jo. It really does.
I know. You know what? I don't want to age us. Well, what the fuck? That's what the show's about. But it was almost 30 years ago.
Yeah,
30 years ago.
I think about, I signed my record deal when I was just turning 30, which is kind of an unheard of thing. Now that would be considered really antiquated. Even at that time, 29, just turning 30 and signing with a major label, I signed with A&M. People were just looking at it like, this shouldn't be happening. She's way past her prime, because young women were so groomed at 14, 15, 16 for the music industry, especially pop. Like when you looked at Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears and what was kind of happening with young women in pop music. So here's me coming along. I'm basically a thumb with eyes and signing to this major label and kind of turning the apple cart over. And I've loved that. That has kind of been my thing throughout my career, is to always be swimming upstream gladly, because let's face it, I like a challenge, so do you. But going back to your show, I loved that cooking show. I still do. I wish it was on right now. I think you guys were innovators. You were breaking ground. You were doing things that the Food Network hadn't even been thought of. Food Network wasn't even a sperm and an egg yet at this point.
Not at all. And the thing is, actually, What's for Dinner is now on Amazon Prime, which I love. And here's the thing, we can't really do a rematch because Ken's dead, but you and I could do it.
Oh,
we
God.
could do it. Wouldn't that be fun?
So fun. It'd be so fun.
No, I'm super proud of that, Joe. And the thing is,
You
again,
should be.
if we had have had that in the States, I would have been living next door to Oprah in Montecito.
I
But,
know.
it was Canada. It was Canada. But, to circle back to, because I wanted to talk about your music first, because I was a huge fan of your music. I actually had a little record deal when I was younger.
I
But
remember that.
this whole thing that you signed at 30, and your songs are so dark and complex and with humor and these beautiful melodies, but they're always a little twisted, which I loved. And I think this really circles back to the topic today about aging and authenticity. And how the hell at 30 could you stand in that and say, no, I'm not doing that. No, this is my lane and I'm going to do it. Like, that is, to me, revolutionary. That's like wisdom at a very young age to be able to do that for yourself.
Well, gladly. I mean, I was 30, so I did have a little bit of life experience. I was a country kid. I grew up in Springbank, Alberta. I actually still live about 4 or 5 miles from where I grew up, but I was sensible, I wasn't 15 or 16. I didn't have a momager. Like I didn't have one of those. My
Right.
parents were like, go for it, have fun, and I hope you make some money. But even early days when Insensitive took off, probably a couple of years after I signed my record deal, it was sort of that phenom song. Everyone wants a song like that. But I remember being in a car in Los Angeles, Mary Jo, with the president of the record company at the time. And it wasn't anything nefarious. He was dropping off a bunch of people and dropping me at the hotel. And I was the last girl to be dropped off. And he said, Jann Arden, you're 30 pounds away from superstardom in this country. And I
Thanks.
remember getting out of the car, and I was little. I was so small then. I'm much bigger now than I was then. But anyways, I phoned my mom, collect. That's how long ago it was.
I love those collect calls. Didn't
I
you
know.
love those collect calls? Love them.
And I told mom what he said. And she said, well, why didn't you tell him you didn't want to gain any more weight? So that's the kind of parents that I had.
Right.
She put a spin on it. And she made me laugh at myself. Like, yeah, why? But you don't think of those things at the time. But that's kind of what I was always up against. And it wasn't just from men. It was a lot more from the women that I worked with at the record company, the people in marketing, the people in promotion. You're working with 20 somethings, even back then in the early 90s, that, would look me up and down and go, oh my God, is that what you're wearing? No,
Oh,
we totally,
yeah.
and I wish I would have had the wherewithal to just say, fuck you guys. This is what I am going to wear, these Doc Martens and these old shitty jeans and a black and white Mac jacket. And that's how I'm going to go on the Jay Leno show. So you
Yeah.
can stop it. And yeah, I'm glad I was older, Mary Jo.
Yeah. And that wouldn't happen today. Of course not. That wouldn't have happened today. But it's interesting, that thing about women, because the men are one animal and then the women are a whole other thing, like that disdain and that mean girl attitude and like the projection onto us. Like, I find women complicated and sometimes difficult around that
For
too.
sure. Yep.
You think it'd be this big sisterhood, but not so much sometimes. Like, it's
No.
really cutthroat,
Yeah, people always say, did you have a lot of trouble with men as you were coming up through the ranks? And I'm like, actually, no. The men were pretty cool. The young guys that I worked with were pretty cool and pretty straightforward, but the women could be petty. So I don't know how much that's changed, maybe a little bit, but I always tell people all the time, success isn't a ladder. It's the worst metaphor ever
Yeah.
invented, because the visual on that is there's only room for one person to go up and down at a time. I always have thought of success as a horizon, which means that thousands upon thousands of people, women especially, can stand shoulder to shoulder on equal ground. But the ladder to success, it's always been a bad, shitty analogy. And it's one that I never use, because you got to crawl over somebody when you're
Yeah.
going up the ladder. A horizon gives you a lot more space and equal footing.
Well, that comes from a place of scarcity. If you're doing that, it comes from a place, there's only this one lane and this only one person can do it, instead of a bandwidth of success, that people can achieve success around you. And by the way, this is my analogy for friendships. I always want my female friends to do really well, because I figure if they're really happy, they're going to be really nice to me. We're going to have like a great time. Like, we're going to be connected and strong through that. I wouldn't wish misery on any woman, or think that because they're super successful, I can't achieve that,
Cheering people on is a fantastic way to approach everything in your life. There's no room for that pettiness. It just doesn't make any sense. I think cheering people on makes you it enriches your life in ways that you don't even fully understand until you start getting older. I loved my 50s. I got sober. I was able to deal with my aging parents with dementia and do it with some sense of grace. I really understood the importance of my friendships. Um, I didn't even start becoming a person until I hit 50, probably 55. So I just feel like it's such a place of power to be aging, and it's such it a lot of people don't age. I've lost a lot of friends over the years. I'm sure you have too,
It's
young.
called the privilege of aging. And
Yeah.
I sort of think I'm getting it week by week. I'm a little late to the game, but I love your quote. It takes a long time to become a person. And in January, February, I had a trajectory of personal things that took me under. I'm like, whoa, didn't see that coming. And I was just taken out. And again, I'm going to quote you. I love this. No, I will not lay down. I will not live my life like a ghost in this town. I'm not lonely. Swear to God, I'm just alone. And I love that. That was everything to me. I've been really doing a deep dive into your music and on the California freeways, just on repeat, just loving it. But I went to Rome for 2 months to do a life reset on my own. Didn't know the language, no man, no nothing. And I'm like, I've got stuff to deal with. And like in your book, by the way, your book, If I Knew Then, Finding Wisdom in Failure and Power in Aging. What I love is it's such a love letter to life and aging. But what you're saying is the dirtier, the uglier, the more beautiful the reward. I'm in it. Life is like just these ebbs and flows, and you've got to embrace the ugly and the monster to get to the beauty. And that's kind of what I did for a couple of months on my own. And it was painful, but the pain goes through you, right? It
So
goes through.
where did you go, if you don't mind me asking? Like, did you just sort of throw a dart at the Italian boot and say, oh, did you know anybody over there?
No, I said, I know, seriously. And I said, where do I want to go? I want to go somewhere that's tragically beautiful, which Rome is. Rome is tragically beautiful. I don't speak the language. I don't know anybody. I want to go. I want to be immersed in, I want to live in a 17th century building. I want to be alone, but not lonely. I
Yeah.
want to do this deep dive into myself as I'm entering my 60s and not figure it out. It's not even figure it out, really. It's just like, I'm going to rewire a little here. I'm going to rewire for this phase in my life. So I went there, and it was the most beautiful, broken, painful, liberating experience, to do that. And when I read your book, I felt that was the theme throughout your book, that if this horrible thing hadn't happened, this beauty wouldn't have happened to me.
Oh, for
And you
sure.
seem to be able to embrace it all.
Yeah, I think removing obstacles out of our lives, it lessens your probability of having a good character, like a strong, authentic, vulnerable, true character. Because really all you have is that as you make your way through your life. Like, who are we? Like, what are we? What are we doing here? But good things have always come out of bad things for me. And I do talk about the book early days. I didn't really want to be a singer, but I became one because my dad was an alcoholic. And so I spent an inordinate amount of time in my parents' basement because we lived in the country. It's not like I could walk to 7-Eleven. I
We
had
had
no
a basement like that, by the way. We
Yeah.
had the same basement, no ventilation, probably mold. We probably got weird headaches, like same basement, right? Our parents
No
just threw us
windows.
down there. No, nothing.
It was like a light bulb with a string attached to it.
We had
And
that too.
you prayed that you'd find it. You'd wave your arms around in the dark until you kind of hit the string. But yeah, I just listened to records. Mom had an old guitar down there. And so because of his alcoholism, I I found this path that I would never have considered in a million bajillion years. I just wouldn't
To
have.
be
So
able to do that.
it's one of those things where if you think about it too long, it kind of freaks you out. Like, what if my dad had been just a great dad that was a guy that, threw a ball at you in the backyard or whatever? But my dad was unpredictable, drunk, mean, always looking for a fight. And when you're 9, 10 years old, it's a really hard thing to figure out. You know your mom's upset half the time, but when I figured out music, when I started teaching myself how to play guitar and making up songs, I knew my life was changed. And so even the times in my life when I tried to get away from music or, for a while, I really wanted to be a school teacher. I wanted to go and get some kind of an education degree, or go into, get a degree in literature or something. But music just kept dragging me back into the ditch for the most part, and working in these horrible clubs and everything. But it's been a really great way to make my way through my life. But good things come out of bad things. You don't even know you're
You
in,
know,
you don't even know you're in this pivotal moment of change until you're able to look back at it.
you can't see it when you're in it. But what's so interesting about your story is its authenticity, right? Like even how you got your record deal. I know Alan Reed. By the way, you're right. He's so super hot.
Yeah.
He's super hot guy, and he's married to Kim
Yes.
Stockwood now.
Yes.
But even that, because he passed on your record deal the first time, but then when he went through a breakup and he started listening to your songs, he had that connection with you. It
He's
was
like,
your
I get it
authentic
now.
self.
Yeah, he passed on me. He said, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do with you. And then his girlfriend, fiance broke up with him, and he took some time off. And then when he came back, my cassette was still in his car deck. And
Jesus,
the first song,
cassette.
the first song that came on was called I Just Don't Love You Anymore. And yeah, he's just like, I get it. I get what you do. And so I've been with Universal over 30 years now.
That's incredible.
Same record company. Yeah, I just did my 15th record last year with them. So it's a pretty strange story. We've been together for a long time.
But that's the way it should happen. And just circling back to your dad too, that's really interesting. So, because you're so kind, you have such a kind aura, like such a joyous aura. And to be, and we all have our dark side for sure, but to be in that situation in your family, I mean, you had your escape, but you don't bear that. Your energy is not that. Was that a conscious decision to not be like that?
I think I just took after my mom. My mom was always very optimistic. I don't know how she stayed with my dad. I know she kicked him out once, probably when we were teenagers. I just threw him out. I threw his pants out the window and his suit jackets, and I just said, that's it. I didn't know what we were going to do, but I was not living with that. And I think dad, he was just like, I don't want to be by myself. I don't want to be a bachelor. So he got sober and came back home, and that was the end of it. I mean, I do credit my dad with getting sober, and he quit smoking. He says, I quit every goddamn thing that was fun in my goddamn life. And he was still a miserable guy, to be honest, but he was manageable. You could, he got the joke, he got the assignment, and he followed along, and he tried to be a participant in the family. But he was a good provider and a good guy. But my mom, so optimistic. I'd have fun on an apple crate in the middle of a field. And that's exactly how she was.
Yeah,
And
that's like my mom. My mom's like that.
yeah, it
Yeah.
just is grace. Mom was raised in a logging camp in northern Canada, like just about in the Northwest Territories. And she had a tough go. And but she just was filled with grace. I mean, they lived in a sod hut until she was like 11 or 12 years old. So a
Yeah.
house made of dirt.
God.
People are like, oh my God, but it was it was the 30s
Yeah.
in the Great White North. Mom said, well,
Canada.
it wasn't that bad, but you can't dust a sod house. No, I don't. Don't expect you could.
So is bred in the bone with her. That's her nature. She
Yeah.
had like a beautiful nature. And because I'm so close to my mom, she's in the bedroom. She's not drinking, but we will be later. But by the way, I'm cutting back on my drinking. That's another discussion. But she's my best friend. She's my best friend, my biggest cheerleader. Like every morning, every stupid thing I do, I call her and I'm like, Mom, and I need her to say, good job. You're wonderful. I mean, I'm single too. I don't have a partner. But I depend on her so much for that, right? For that closeness. Hi, Poppy. Hi, Poppy. So when I've seen this story about your mother and the beautiful book you wrote for her and everything, and I could viscerally see how close you were, I related so much to that. I projected myself onto you with your relationship with your mom. And it was such a beautiful thing to watch. And you talk about adaptability, which I think is so interesting. There's a great book Frank Bruni wrote, The Beauty of Dust, because he lost his sight and he was a journalist. And he talks about the ability of us to adapt. And in your book, you talk about this and you're like, I don't know how I can go on for one more day, but I am. So I guess my question about aging, your relationship with your mom in the final days, it seemed to be, the sorrow of aging, but the beauty of aging. It
Mhm.
must have been just really complex because you were caregiving for her, but probably aware you were going to lose her. So I'd love you to speak to that because your relationship with her is so powerful for us who
Well,
follow you.
I I miss my mom a lot, but I'm also really glad that she's gone. And those seem like very conflicting statements, but my mom wasn't my mom near the end. There was little glimpses of her there, but honestly, it was the most difficult thing I ever did in my life. And absolutely the most rewarding thing was to look after my mom and my dad, both with memory loss stuff. But, it was a decade of just trying to somehow beat Alzheimer's at its own game, and it was an impossible task. And I spent 5 years being the memory police, 5 years making mistakes, 5 years trying to correct my mom, and 5 years going, "No, mom, it wasn't Uncle Bob, it was Uncle Dave, and we didn't drive there." I was always like trying to be right. I thought if I corrected her enough and redirected her, that I would beat Alzheimer's, that she would figure it out and regain her senses. And the day that I finally let go of that, I got myself back and I got my mother back, because the contention and the frustration and the anxiety that you bring upon yourself as a caregiver, trying to somehow, it's like herding a bunch of wild ducks and expecting them to stay on the road when you're going to have some in the ditch, you're going to have some fly off. That's what Alzheimer's is like. You're dealing with so many different personalities, but it made me such a better version of myself. It just taught me a lot about being in the moment and being humble. And I was really grateful for the mess and grateful for the grace that it gives you to care for another person. We live in a culture where filial piety, like looking after a parent, is so lost on this culture.
Yeah.
Everywhere else in the world, you absorb your grandmother and your great grandmother into the family. They move into the home and everyone's responsible. Everyone wipes their butts and feeds them and gets them into bed and takes turns looking after them. But here, we stuff them away into these retirement homes, nursing homes, memory care centers. It's big, big, big business. But it's
Huge business.
when COVID happened, we understood how flawed the system was and
Yeah.
how broken the system was. They're still reeling from the tens of hundreds of thousands of deaths that occurred, and the caregivers that are underpaid and underfunded and all of that stuff that came with it. But for me, on a personal level, worst thing that ever happened to me and the best thing that ever happened to me. It sounds like a Dickens book. It was the worst of times, it was the best of
And the
times.
best of times, the peasants were revolting. No, that's what I was thinking. It's the beauty and the sorrow of aging. And, the whole, the topic about aging and like hiding it, like we're supposed to just disappear, that we can't age, And at this point in my life, I feel like almost 12 years old. Like I have so much to learn and so much to engage in. And I've got sort of this monkey off my shoulder about really caring that much what people think, like finding, what my rule book is, what my truth is. And one of my best friends, I wasn't dating him, but he wanted to date me. He's 93. And he's hysterical. And he like makes like pedophile jokes and cock jokes, but I love him. Like he's been in show business for 75 years, worked for Mel Brooks and Hal Prince. And he's one of my best friends. And he lost his wife a year ago. And he's already hooked up with a new gal. They've moved in, just turned 93.
Hallelujah.
He just fell the other day, but she's taking care of him. And I talked to him this morning and I said, because she's got a pool. And I said, "You're not going to wear a Speedo, are you?" He said, "Well, I've got one." And I said, "No, you cannot wear a Speedo. You can't." And, but he's got love at 93 years old. So he is, and he said this to me this morning. He said, "I'm not going in a facility. It ain't happening. I'm going to stay in my home. I'm going to figure it out." But that's to me, I mean, for some people, it's the right choice, but his family, his girlfriend are taking care of him.
Oh,
As
wow.
they
I mean,
should.
contrary to what people think, most elderly people die in their own homes. So as much as statistically we have all this stuff thrown at us, it's not the majority of elderly people that do end up in care. Although that's what does happen. And there are a lot of families that do have a granny suite. They do have something, a room in the basement. They do have something out behind their house, and they make it work. Or like my dear friend Marianne is 91. She lives in Saskatoon. She's lived alone for years. She still drives. She has a huge freaking Cadillac car that she drives around. She does chop and chat. She makes like hundreds of banana breads every month for people that need them. Like, she is a force. I met her in Palm Springs in March because I turned 61. She turned 91. We celebrated together. So I understand having a friend that really shows you the way.
I love it.
She's a little bit forgetful, but she knows that. But I think she'll be able to stay in her home. Her kids are fantastic. She's got 2 sons and a daughter that are terrific, and they make sure that she has the support that she needs. So for all you people listening, most of us will kick our clogs in our own homes.
Yeah.
But it's challenging, man. Getting older, there's things that go sideways. Your body kind of starts going wacky, and yet you do have to have a sense of humor. Betty Davis
Absolutely.
say it wasn't for, wussies. You can't be.
It's not for pussies. It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah,
It's not.
But you can also change the course of your life by eating well and looking after yourself, not drinking too much, like you said, Mary Jo, and making sure that you walk and keep moving. Yoga is a great idea. Trust me, I fucking hate yoga with every ounce of who I am. I hate it. I don't want to do it, but I do it.
You got to. You got to move.
Minutes.
You got to move.
I can't do any of the shit. I can't. Everything that I do when I'm looking at the instructor doing it, I'm like, fuck, why do I look so like a lunatic?
I might break here. I mean, I do it all. I move all the time. I play tennis with a hot young guy who was ranked #1 in Morocco. I do Pure Barre with Ray Don Chong. Do you know Ray Don Chong?
Yes, I don't know her, but I certainly know of her and know her work.
She says, say hi. She loves you.
Hi, Ray Don.
So I'm moving all the time, but this book, Frank Bruni, the Beauty of Dusk, he talks about aging and the adaptability of our neurosenses, and that we can actually improve our brainwave, we can improve our thinking. It's not like all downhill neurologically. Like, we can actually do things like be engaged and actually not crash and burn. So the whole thing too in your book that I love too was a physical aspect of our aging, not just, what's falling and going south, but, we like to be attractive, and it's that comment you said, God, when I was 30, I look at myself, we were tiny and we were beating ourselves up,
Well, it's amazing to me, pictures don't lie. And at every stage in a woman's life, mostly, and I'm sure men do this as well, but women are saddled with this stuff. They look at pictures even 5 years ago. And they're like, oh my God, my arms. There's nothing wrong with my arms.
I know.
My neck looked good. Why was I? And now you're 5 years later. So I always say to people, for God's sakes, when you're looking at a photograph of yourself now, realize that the version of you 10 years from now is going to look at this moment and go, why was I hard on myself? Because I looked fantastic. So you have to remind yourself in that moment, because you're doing it to the version of yourself 5 years ago. You're going, I was good. Look at my eyebrows. Look at my hair. Look at my,
look at my neck.
Look at my, and so that's what I want people to do. You don't have to make that same mistake again. So when you're looking at this now, when you're the person in the picture going, oh my God, I hate it. Can we take another one? Because I look so weird. Don't do that. 10 years from now, 5 years from now, a year from now, you're going to go, I looked fine.
I know. It's all, I even do that with the photograph the day before. I look like, why did I delete that photograph? I'm super cute. But now at 60, like I've been dating a lot of men. Ask Mike, our producer, behind the scenes. I'm telling him all these hilarious stories about dating all these men, and having fun. I'm having fun at 60. I don't want to say I'm being a bit of a guy, because I don't want to sound, but it's a really, I don't know. I'm in a really good spell right now that I'm having that. I don't have a serious partner or anything, but
I've been on my own for 7 years and I've never been more
happy
myself. Yeah. It's so funny. I got sober, ended a 10-year relationship, became vegan, and found a
What
row
else?
that was it.
Jesus.
I mean, that was it. But I didn't mean to do it. It just sort of happened. I got to that point where I just didn't want to eat. I didn't want to hurt anything anymore. I just didn't want to hurt anything anymore. I don't want to be responsible for that. And when you think about climate change and people feel very, very frustrated and helpless. They're like, what can I do for climate change? I'm one person in Alberta. Don't eat meat, go vegan, go green. That in and of itself changes the way the world, have 2 vegan meals a week. But
Yeah.
anyway, I thought about, dating, and I'm like, I don't want to. I don't want anyone in my house. I don't want anyone in my bed. I went from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next for 35 years. And I thought, I don't want that anymore. Well, 30 years, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I was, I was, I was tangled up with somebody by the time I was 20 for 5 years, and then 3 years, and then 8 years, and then 4 years, and then 5 years, and then a decade. And I'm like, nope. So when I came to the end of that, I had that moment where I'm the common denominator in every single one of these relationships. But being a drunk too, that didn't help anything. But
Yeah.
I get it. Good for you for dating, because it's so not on my radar. It's not on my
But
scope. I
physically,
can't
I've got,
imagine.
I have physical needs, like,
Yeah.
and that is fun. I have to admit that's fun. But I'm thinking, I'm looking at all of it right now because I haven't had a serious partner since 2010 or 11. I did fall in love with somebody big time, but I haven't heard from him in 2 years. I'm thinking it's over. I don't know. I'm thinking it might be, but he broke my heart.
Oh, maybe, isn't it a 3-year moratorium on breaking hearts? That's a long time to be ghosted. 2 years.
It's a long time to be ghosted. I love my friends who love me. They're like, he could be dead. No, he's not dead. But I look at it this way now, that whatever it was in him, there was something electric. It didn't last very long. I fell in love with him. And instead of saying the story, okay, yeah, it looks like he ghosted me, I'm just going to say, well, he made a different choice. I'm not going to put.
But he probably did you a favor.
I know.
Just ignore this phone.
Is that your agent? So that was revelatory. So like being in this phase in my life, and I had a little relationship in the fall that was 2 or 3 months with somebody who was very needy and very demanding. And I'm like, oh no, that's not happening. And also the thought of waking up with somebody every day was not happening. I wasn't loving that. And I thought, okay, I've got to examine that, but it was not something I was pining for. I didn't want it. I thought I did. I thought I wanted to be somebody's girlfriend, somebody who was successful, and they would take me shopping and make me look pretty and take me to dinner. But you know what? It lasted a week. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Not this time around. I'll just keep going. Should I talk about the last time I had sex?
I think they did you a favor, though. Honestly, I think what we do realize when we get older, you don't want to drag someone to the altar. You don't want to have to drag them into a relationship. You don't want to drag somebody into having affection for you, or expressing love towards you, or being more tender with you, or being more demonstrative, or more affectionate in public. Why don't you hold my hand when we're public?
That's a big one.
If you're asking questions to somebody at this point, when you know that those signs are there for a reason, this is not the right person for you. If you actually have to grab someone's hand and they pull it away, no, I don't want to do that, there's too many people around, that's not the right person for you.
No, but we fight it. We try and make it fit.
Yeah, but how many times are you going to learn those lessons?
Oh, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not doing it anymore.
And I really don't need to be in a relationship. And I don't know if I ever will again. And I know I'm young and my friends caution me to not think that way, but it's not like I've gone, no, no, no. But I have a sense of belonging. I feel happy.
Yeah.
I'm not, and as a queer woman, it's a little different. It's not like being in the dating pool. I'm just really, I want to say fussy. That sounds so elitist and horrible. But my list of what things that I would require in a relationship is really fucking long.
Yeah.
And when I look at that list, I give it all to myself. I don't need money. I don't need to be looked after. And I don't want to look after anyone. I didn't have kids for a reason. I didn't It wasn't my thing. It's not what I wanted. I didn't have any maternal instincts. I spent my 20s and a good part of my 30s praying that I wasn't pregnant every weekend. Like, it's like,
Good times, good
I will
times.
never do it again. Like, and my period would be late and I'd just be thinking, oh my God, like it was rock and roll. I was in bars all over the country, playing on the weekends, and just, I was very promiscuous. And I just feel like there's nothing I haven't fulfilled in that sense, that I don't know. I just don't know if I'm ever going to be able to take somebody on. I think I'm incredibly selfish. My work always comes first. I always come first. And I just am not going to put anyone through that anymore. So we'll see what happens, Mary Jo. I
Yeah.
honestly, I don't know, but I
But that's
think
called knowing yourself, maybe. That's called knowing yourself.
I
Unlike this whole
do.
thing
I
that,
do.
yeah, no, you can tell, like you listed those things, bitch. Like you were like, you know your things. And I also think what you went through with your parents, like that's grace. Like that is, what you must have learned and endured, and that's a relationship, obviously, during that time period. And that we sort of feel we lose some of our autonomy if we move into a relationship. So I get it. I think that we have to take care of ourselves. I see so many women in relationships that are so compromised. And I've learned, by the way, don't say anything, because they stay together always. And if you say something, they kind of secretly hate you. So I always just say, unless somebody's getting beaten up, I just say, I don't,
Yeah,
your
exactly.
story.
And if they break up, make sure you don't say anything, because they'll fucking get back together again.
They'll
And
get
then
back together.
you're left holding the turd at the front door, that someone lit on fire. You're
Yeah.
standing there with the literal turd on fire because they've gotten back with this individual.
Yeah.
So I don't say, you're right. I just don't say anything more unless, yeah, they're missing an ear and their arm's broken the next morning. It's just like, no, dude, you're going to have to fight me, because you're not going back to into that relationship.
Missing an ear is a good tip off. Like if that happens, like you sort of have to put your foot down. But in general, I say I'm out. I even know about infidelities. I'm out. I'm
Yeah.
out because I've done that before. I've stepped up.
Would you ever get married again?
Oh God. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Never say never.
I
How old
would
are your
never
kids
say
now?
never.
How old are your kids?
My son's going to be 25. My daughter's
He's
going to
not.
university. Yeah. And my daughter's going to go to university. So she's almost 18. And I don't know, because I'm on that path that you're on. Like I even pulled my drinking back for 3 weeks. I'm experimenting with everything right now. And I sort of really feel I need to get my own story clear before I can have fun. I don't mind having fun, but so I don't know. I guess you can never say never, right? Right?
Yeah. No, life is surprising. If nothing else, you really don't know what's around the corner.
Especially now.
Really, you can't even fathom. Like there's things that have happened in my life I couldn't have predicted ever. And so I've stopped doing that. People say,
Yeah.
so what's next? And what's your 5-year plan? I've never planned a thing in my life.
That's what you say in your book.
I just don't. And it is
Yeah.
the truth. I never planned when I was a kid. I never planned as a young woman. And now as I'm entering into the crone years, like
I love the crone
I've got my
analogy.
stick, I've got my cape, and you shall not pass. And I'm smashing it on the ground. And there's a dragon beside me doing my bidding. But
Super hot, Jann. Super
Oh,
hot. Put that on your dating profile. I really
God, it
like
is.
that.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I can't plan. And if I did plan something, it would be out the window in
It would
about
fuck
a
up.
hot minute. It would be gone.
It would fuck up. And that's sort of Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
This quote I love that you said. Okay. Can you tell I've really done my research on Jann
Yes,
Arden?
you're like Brian Linehan.
Too bad he's dead. Do you know I lost to him twice? I lost a Gemini Award twice to Brian Lanahan. Ken and I were
Well,
nominated for best hosting.
he was a fierce competitor.
But he was dead, Jann, twice. That's not fair. We should have got one award.
You lost to a dead person?
Twice. He was dead 2 years running, Jann.
Brian.
Brian, seriously, circa 1962. I love this quote from you. It might sound way too simple, but I think my goal was to try and be happy. No matter what I ended up doing or being, I knew I wanted to be happy. And that's no small thing. And it's no small thing.
No. And I am happy, but Cautionary tale, normally people that tell you they're happy all the time are the most miserable people on the earth. So I'm very reticent to say that I'm happy. So I try and use different language sometimes. I mean, it was great to write that quote down in the book, but like I'm calm and I'm serene and I'm living my best life. It's so funny because people are they're weaponizing and politicizing everything you say, especially when it surrounds happiness on social media. Oh my God, she just flaunts it around and I never make people feel bad or feel like they're not, like I have the most boring Instagram in the world. It's birds, it's my road, it's the dog. It's something to do with, I don't know.
Your horses, your horse shit, but it's still controversial to people, right? It's still controversial. And
Yeah.
by the way, happiness is nuanced. It's not like, it's like what you said, it's calm, it's stillness, it's
Yeah, it's not a
self-reflection.
beer commercial, but people think of happiness as you're running in slow motion in a bathing suit with a cold beer in your hand and the waves are coming in. That's not happiness. That is my hell, to tell you.
That is okay. Now
It's
I have a question. I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Well, first of all, okay, I'm going to ask you a question. Just I'm a very linear thinker. Then I'm going to do a few questions from the Proust questionnaire for you.
Yes.
Because you're such a good guest.
Yes.
So my producer, I have a picture last year that I took in a bikini at 60, just a casual picture. And I never post shit like this. And he's like, you should make that the picture for senior bitches. Now, you know what people are going to tear me a strip for doing that. Is that a good idea? Should I do that?
Yeah, I think you should.
Jan said yes.
I think you should. Because
Okay.
for one thing, it's ironic.
Yes.
And it is looking flaws and all. It's just like, you can judge me, you can do everything, but I am at the age where there's nothing that you're going to say to me that's going to tear down what this vessel is. It moves me. It had children. It carries me around. It 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 carries my brain and my heart. It enables me to love and hug people and hold them and cheer them. It's an absolute must.
Oh, I'm going to do that. Okay. And I'm going to thank you for that. I'm going to do it. Fuck it. I'm getting there. I'm going to do that.
Doesn't mean
it.
anything. It doesn't matter. If you're doing anything waiting for somebody else to approve of it, then you're not living an authentic life.
Nobody approves of anything I do. So
You're on the
I'm
right
not,
track.
well, yeah, because I'm offensive and I speak my mind, but no, that I've lost that, which is great. I'm so glad I've lost that. Okay. I'm going to do that.
Good.
I'm going to do that. Now, I have a few little questions for you, then I'll let you go on your day because I know you have very important things to do.
Oh, very important. I'm going to walk the dog, but you can tell people that I'm doing something else. I'm walking.
Brain surgery this afternoon because you're doing, you've got a few things that you're doing.
No,
What is your greatest fear? I couldn't ascertain that from your book. Maybe you don't have any.
I don't really have a greatest fear. I'm quite frightened of moths. I know that sounds so dumb.
They're scary.
But I was driving my moped down a country road in the 80s at a fierce speed of probably 20 miles an hour. And
Ouch.
a moth went into my helmet and it was fluttering by my ear. And I drove off the road into a giant boulder and just about killed myself because I didn't have the sense to just come to a stop because I was panicked. But a moth really frightens me. I have no idea why. I don't have any childhood trauma. I don't think I have moth legacy trauma.
You might, in a different life, you might have been devoured by moths in ancient Egypt. You might have been.
But that I'm really not frightened of everything or anything rather. I'm not particularly scared of dying. It's something that we do, and my mom made it look super easy. And plus,
that would be the scariest thing too, right?
Why would I be afraid of dying? I'm not even gonna know. And she said to me, your body, your soul is your pilot, and your body's your spacecraft. And she said, you can't take your body with you when you leave here because you just have to leave it behind. And that was when full-blown Alzheimer's. Your soul is your pilot and your body's your spaceship. That's what she said. But no, I really am not frightened of it. I'm not frightened of people. I'm not frightened of failing, as the book says. My failures have been epic They are exactly why I'm sitting where I'm sitting. The house that you're seeing behind me is really has a lot more to do with failing than it has to do with succeeding. I fail at a lot of things because I like doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I don't mind it. I fucking don't mind it.
I love that attitude. I've failed so
Yeah, yeah,
epically, huge
epically.
failures. Yeah. And I've learned so much from them. I used to be so scared of them, but I don't really care anymore. Kind of the bigger, the better. I'll own it. And I love that you talk about that in your book, because
Yeah,
that's where all the good stuff comes from.
it really is. It's having a unique character and a unique personality in life and really being who you are. That's the whole thing. That's the whole, we march through this, whatever this is here on this little marble flinging through space. We're just trying to be ourselves. We spend our whole formative years, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, trying to figure out who we are. And then when you let it just land on your lap and you understand the specialness of being a unique individual, that's why it always blows my mind, these arguments with trans people or, anything that's slightly different. I'm so perplexed and disheartened by people pointing fingers at other people. If you want to have horns installed under your skin on your head, or have a boob job, or have your boobs off, or however you want to augment your body and however you want to present yourself, that's yours to be. That's your journey. And nobody should be able to tell you when, and they're politicizing that too.
Oh no, I know
It's just they're weaponizing a conversation, whether it's women's reproductive rights, the trans stuff. They will always find a way to somehow homogenize uniqueness, homogenize creativity, to squish it down. And I say this is the time to rise up, to be as creative as you possibly can, to use your voice, to be fearless, to stand up for your brothers and your sisters and your non-binary people and your trans friends, which I have a ton of.
Yeah.
People I've known all my life have suddenly just, they need to change what they were. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what do I call you? What name would you like me to say? How do you want? And I ask questions. Well, what does this mean? Like, and hey, you're getting put down.
I'm coming. I'll back over it.
I wanted to touch on that because it's really important to, and I don't care if you have listeners that are like, oh my God, she was great until she got into the trans stuff. And then she just lost me. I am glad that I'm losing.
I lost you.
Because
Yeah.
I don't want you. So goodbye.
Oh, I love this. My son is gay. And one of my really good friends, Maria McKee, who was on Lone Justice. Do you know that band Lone Justice?
Yeah, you bet.
Oh, she is like the most gifted person ever. And she's on this. This is her whole life's work, the trans community. She's absolutely unbelievable what she's doing. And, the way that they're politicizing it, what they're using it is to create fear and division, right? That's what they're, and dehumanizing people and making it a political bullshit thing that nobody, that's not irrelevant, but just using it to gin up the base and animosity. And these are people and kids, and it's like heartbreaking. I used to do a lot of work at the LGBTQ here, and the kids would come in who were transitioning, and there was 30% of the population of the street kids were transitioning, and they would come into the center, and maybe 20% of them would be savvy, right? And then you had these kids like from Kansas and Middle America. I just objectively coming in and just putting on a dress and feeling cozy, and not stylish and, like flamboyant, but just like this made them feel human, and so sweet and so loving.
How does anybody know how we come through the veil? What a complicated process this is, to be human, to be alive, to be egos and spirits in a physical body that doesn't always match what our minds are telling us and our true authentic selves. Why is it okay for me to maybe want a breast reduction and Botox and to get my teeth fucking veneered? How is that any different than someone saying, I don't want this and I want this to change and I don't feel right about having these and I don't feel right about, how is that any different? How could I ever impose that kind of rhetoric, that
Yeah,
weird narrow-mindedness on another human being? It
I
is,
know.
if you've stopped listening, I'm glad gone.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
That's the end of the story. And I
Yeah.
will stand up, I will stand in front of libraries. I will be there for you whenever you need me. And I will, my shoulders are broad because I'm not 31, I'm 61. So the game has changed, baby. And
Okay.
that ship has sailed, it has left the harbor. So if you're not beside me, get out of my fucking way.
Fucking support you 1,000,000%. I agree. All the hatred, it infuriates me. It's
It's not
horrible.
going to win. It won't win.
No, it won't win.
Too
And it's
many
just
of us.
it's a political agenda right now. And
That's all it is.
it's just
And
for a headline. And
what will
it's
they
just,
move on to next, Mary Jo? What will they
well,
move
I don't know.
on
Here,
to
can I
next?
just, I don't know. This is my thing for Roe versus Wade. If I can just put this out here, because this is my thing too, like the trans community, but this is a big one for me. And I get into not arguments with people, but I can't believe that people don't see this. Okay, Roe versus Wade, taking away the rights of women, absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah.
Then Clarence
Welcome
Thomas
to
wants,
1729.
yeah, thank you so much. Why don't you just put us on the stake? And then so Clarence Thomas, the one taking kickbacks from the billionaire, wants to also, so you can't get birth control, right? And you can't get Plan B. So birth control, if you're not on insurance, is $80 a month. A lot of people can't afford that, right? But now he's trying to take it out of the lexicon so you can't get it. So people are like, this pro-life thing and everything. And I see this movement as a punitive movement against women, saying you can't enjoy sex, you can't have birth control, you can't be a fully realized person. If you get pregnant, you carry that baby. You don't have the worth. This is what you do. So women's sexuality, women's autonomy, women's power, it's punitive. It's pure punitive measures, because once that kid comes into the world, the GOP specifically doesn't give a shit. So this is just about taking everything away from women. It's not just the right to choose, it's the right to actually enjoy sex, to enjoy their sensuality, their bodies, like their power. It's just, it's like, it's draconian.
Yeah, it's Handmaid's Tale. But the thing of it is, women are collaborating. They are standing shoulder to shoulder. Even, and I have friends that don't really necessarily believe in abortion, but they sure believe in pro-choice still. You can still
Yeah.
be both.
Yeah.
And and respect the rights of an individual. This could be a whole other show, but the thing of
Oh
it is,
God, Jan, we've got a
use your
lot of shows
voice.
in
You've
us.
got to stand up. You've got to understand, anyone that's ever been marginalized in their lives. And maybe there's a lot of you people listening that have never felt marginalized. You've never felt put on a shelf. You've never felt like you've had your rights and your autonomy stripped away. Maybe you've never felt that in your life, but there are millions upon billions of people,
Who do?
specifically Black people and brown people in this planet, that are the most marginalized. So you add on, your right for birth control, add that onto their already unbelievably oppressive, horrific conditions into which they're living their lives. We will get past it. I think it's going to be an upwards fight, but I feel like people are in it. They're playing.
We'll get past it, but the actual sickness has to come up. And that's what's happening now. It's all coming up. The sickness, the darkness, everything is coming up, into the light. And we're going through a process as a society. Like it's a sick society.
Find the good people. Find the good people.
I know. Well, you're a good people. You're a good person. And the final question, but you've given me such great nuggets today, is what is your motto?
Be yourself at all times.
I love it.
I
love it.
Be yourself at all times, whatever that is. Just be you. Don't try and be a reasonable facsimile of somebody else. Don't chase after somebody, what you think you should be doing. Oh, this is what's popular right now, I should be more like that. be yourself. You can monetize yourself. There's only one of you. You can monetize being your unique self. You just have to lean into who you are and what you like. And if you don't know what you like, be patient with yourself. If you're a young person, it takes a long time to figure out what you want to do. My dad used to say to me, well, go to university. You'll sure as hell figure out what you don't want to do in a goddamn hurry. And he
Yeah.
was right. When I went to college, I realized very quickly what I didn't want to do. But I had to spend the money and be like, oh shit, I failed. Failure once again.
There you go.
I
The
found out what I
experience.
didn't want to do. And be
Yeah.
yourself at all times.
And so, did that come with aging?
I kind of felt that way in my 30s. I did, because I knew I wasn't fashionable. I wasn't one of the cool kids. But, I was just making up songs that I really believed in. And I found an audience. I've never been terribly popular. I've never been, one of those people that someone's going to scream for at a shopping mall. I'm just not. I've found balance in my life where I can make my way as a music artist or an actor or an author or whatever it is that I want to try. But it's never at the risk or of losing myself in all of that. Fame interests me zero. It has
Yeah.
teeth. I'm not interested in it. I can wander everywhere. People don't even know I'm in a they'll look at me like I think I went to school with her. But they just have, so I have the best of both worlds.
You
And
do.
I've never wanted to be a famous person. So I'm not that. I live in the sticks. I don't know if you can see behind me, but it's just, I have no curtains in my house.
I can see,
I have
but
no neighbors. I have
but
no,
we,
there's no one around me.
but we still love you and we all know who you are. And everybody I speak to, my friends anyway, they just love you and adore you. And I've loved spending this hour with you and your book and everything that you're putting out there. Like I had a few tears, I had lots of laughs, but it spoke to me so hard. And I just appreciate that you took the time to spend with me today and
Let's
just
do this
reconnect
again.
with you. I'm
Let's do
in, babe.
Let's just tackle the world. We should touch
Can
base
we?
at least every 6 months just to see where we're at.
I was thinking of coming up to visit, like Jesus,
Please
for
do.
what,
You're
couple of
welcome here
weeks?
anytime. You're welcome here anytime.
Okay, I would love
I'll probably draw the line at the 4-month mark.
it.
But,
Okay, I only stay for 3 months normally, so
Yeah.
you're good. 90 days.
Good for you for doing that. Like
Okay.
it's really, really remarkable. I don't know if I could do it. But it's easy to be vegan in Italy. There's something called pasta. I'd
That's,
probably develop a celiac disease from eating spaghetti every day. But other than that, I think it would be a great place to
oh, you would
reboot.
have loved it. I should have had you come over. And by the way, you can be celiac in Italy and eat pasta because it's so pure and beautiful.
Oh,
Every night I had a bowl of pasta and a glass of wine and bread and olive oil
Ah.
and just like with my little notebook. And I was like, I love this. There's nobody bugging me. I don't have to make conversation. I can order what I want. I was like, this is heaven. This is
Well,
heaven.
the best is yet to come, Mary Jo Eustace. The best is
Well,
yet.
thank you. Thank you, Jann Arden. I'm going to hit you up again. I really enjoyed this.
Please do.